Good evening and welcome to Monsters Among Us. I'm your guide, Derek Hayes. Hello everyone, and welcome back to another thrilling installment. And boy do I have something fun lined up for you here tonight. One of my favorite collections. Now most nights getting from point A to point B is forgettable. Humdrum. Just mile markers, street signs, and radio static. But from time to time, something happens out there that sticks with you, long after you've arrived at your destination. And tonight we're going to hear from those travelers that have experienced the unexplained or seen things they couldn't identify. A collection I like to call Tales from the Road. And welcome to the third installment. So buckle up, lock the doors, roll up the windows, and keep your eyes on the windshield. These are your calls from the road. And to get things started here this evening, we find ourselves on a lonely West Virginian highway. Please welcome Margie from Ohio.
Hi, this is Margie from Freeport, Ohio. I'm calling about a story about my father and his mom and my grandmom. They were living in West Virginia, dirt poor. There were 6 kids. My father was next to the oldest of the 6 children and extremely close to my grandmother. When she had to go to town to get some staples that they couldn't get off the farm, like flour, grain, and salt and sugar, he would always go with her. And she would always stop by this store and admire this beautiful porcelain doll lamp with the old-fashioned girl dressed in a beautiful gown. And she would admire it, and then she'd walk on because she knew they couldn't afford it. It was so much that my father actually contemplated stealing it, but he knew that his mother would know that he had stolen it because there was no way they could afford it, and she would admonish him and make him take it back. So as time went on, she contracted consumption, which was tuberculosis, and was periodically in sanatoriums, and my father would want to go see her, and she was about 25 miles away in this sanatorium, and he would walk and try to hitchhike. This was like 1929. So this one day he was walking along towards the sanatorium, kicking stones and garbage along the way, and he came upon a box. And he started to kick it, but something told him not to. And he grabbed the box and opened it up, and it was one of those porcelain doll lamps. He couldn't believe his eyes, obviously. And he walked on and took that to his mom in the sanatorium. She questioned him, but he explained how he found it, and she cherished it until the day she died. My father was in World War II in France and Germany for 2 years, and that's where he got the telegram that she had passed. But he loved to tell this story. He loved his mother so much. So I hope you enjoy the story. Love your podcast. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, Margie. You know, he sounded like quite the guy. And extremely lucky as well. To find that doll lamp there along the side of the road. It's nothing short of a miracle. Or maybe he did decide to steal the lamp, after all. And this was his cover story. Not to point any fingers, of course. No, weird and wild. Just like the state of West Virginia. And we thank you, Margie, for sharing the wild entry. Now, folks, our exit is coming up. but I think we have time for one more entry. And speaking of weird and wild, kindly welcome Tom to the show.
Hey Derek, this is Chuck from Tucson calling in, telling a story that was relayed to me firsthand by a friend. They're an over-the-road trucker, so maybe you could use it for a trucker special, but he was driving at night in the pouring rain in Tennessee, being a trucker up high over everybody, glancing into people's trucks and cars. He looks over at this cat, and from what he tells me, he sees the guy, and what he's holding onto the steering wheel with are his feet that were on his arms where his hands should be. And as he's pulling up past the guy, he is like, in the next lane, some 15 feet from the guy, and he can see that there's his feet on his hands. And the guy driving looks at him, and my friend said the expression on his face was shock and terror, like this had happened to him and he didn't know what was going on or what was happening. And my friend kept on going down the road. The guy kept on driving. Yeah, so don't know what to tell you about that one. Love the show. Keep it spooky.
We always do around here, Tom. Thank you for calling in. What a great story. Hands for feet. Believe it or not, there is a specialized surgical procedure called the toe-to-hand transfer. Surgeons transplant a toe from the foot to the hand to replace a missing thumb or finger, allowing patients to regain crucial functions like grasping, benching, and daily fine motor skills. Now, I've posted more information to this procedure in the show notes, so perhaps this guy had undergone the same operation due to some sort of injury. But even still, it's not truly hands for feet. Now, to call this one strange would be an understatement, but that's exactly what we should suspect from the road. Now, I have a lot more to share with you right after this.
So, highly recommend it. It gets hot. And it's just then we're exactly here, exactly where we thought we'd be.
Now, I have a lot lined up for this episode, so we need to keep the pedal to the metal. So let's burn rubber over to Washington State, where June is itching to share a tale.
Hi, my name is June. I'm from Washington State. My experience happened in the spring of 2024. My husband and I had gone over to the Washington coast to visit the beaches and whatnot, and we had just left Ruby Beach and were heading back south on the highway towards the lodge we were staying at. As we were driving down the highway, I noticed this weird misty form kind of on the side of the road. It was really weird looking. And as we approach it and go by, I said, "Oh, wow, that looks weird." And before I could even say anything else, my husband just pipes up and says, "Do you mean that ghost figure standing on the side of the road?" It was wild. And it's so strange because he doesn't believe in ghosts and paranormal, really. He's never experienced anything like that. And I don't know, he's just not really into that kind of thing. So it was really strange to hear him just say that, just out of the blue, that that's what he thought it was. Yeah, it was neat. But I was just curious if anybody else has ever experienced anything in that area like that. I tried to do a little bit of research and I couldn't really find anything. Thanks.
Thank you, June. Okay, here's a good question for you. Would you rather see a ghostly mist cross in front of you, or a darkened silhouette dart in front of your vehicle? Well, to help you decide, let's share just such an experience. Anonymous has called in from the state of Kansas.
Hi, I live in Olathe, Kansas, and this is my story. So, it was a late night at the beginning of June 2025. Me and my mom, we were headed back to the airport. I had just gotten back from a DC, New York trip, so it was pretty late, maybe 12:30, 1 a.m. I was clear. We were driving down the highway, and I was talking to my mom. I looked out the window, and I saw this, like, figure walking in the grass, like, right next to us. It was, like, black human outline. I didn't think much of it at first, but as we were getting closer, it started, like, walking into the street, and I was like, Mom, there's a person there. And she slammed on her brakes, and she's like, where? Like, because I said, I swear I saw a person walking the street, because it had vanished. And essentially, I was talking to her about it later, and she's like, yes, she thought she saw the silhouette as well. And I don't know, it was just really eerie, though it was late, so that could have explained it. But, yeah.
Thank you, caller. Now, I somehow think the ghostly mist is the spookier version, if I'm honest. Only because I can explain away the dark silhouetted shape as a passing shadow of something. That ghostly mist, though, well, that's harder to explain away. Now, folks, if you have a story you would like to share here on the program, give my hotline a call at 888-608-NIGHT. That's 888-608-NIGHT. Or you can record your story on your phone using the voice memo app and email it to me at monstersamonguspodcast@gmail.com. And consider this your last call for camping stories. If you've got them, call them in. We're working on something special for next month. And I'm working on something special for the remainder of this episode as well. So how about another ghostly apparition on the highway? John from Texas, welcome to the platform.
Hi, this is John Mike, and I'm from San Antonio, Texas. It's about back in '97. 3 friends went out, see some other friends outside of, San Antonio, where it's pretty much all country. What young kids do, just hang out, talk, play guitar, whatever. Anyways, around 11, we're on our way home. And mind you, we're in a friend's small truck. We're on this old country road, heading to the highway so we can go home. This road, of course, had barbed wire fence on both sides and a bunch of woods, no oncoming traffic, behind us or street lights. As we were driving down this road, we see an object, from afar, like, hey, what is that? And I go a little bit closer and ended up being a female. And I was on the passenger seat, and right away I kind of figured out it was something odd. So I said, stop, pull over, and turn around, and my friend in the middle was, she was almost crying, no, don't stop, just don't. And I go, James, you better turn around right now. She might be in trouble. Because this female that we saw, she had short blonde hair, and her arms were crossed to her chest, and when she was crying, she had like black circles, around her eyes. What's odd, she was barefooted, and her dress was like torn, like about a little bit above knee high. And then we turned around, maybe about 50 yards, give or take, gone, completely gone. We were like just in awe. How can that be? A young female just run into the woods barefooted like that. She was crying, holding herself. We didn't understand. Kept going down the road, going slow, looking, nothing. Mind you, no oncoming traffic, no one in front of us or behind us. Anyways, we're silent on the way home. We really didn't say a word, which I guess each of us were thinking about it, what we saw. So, of course we go home. So my friend who was driving came over, later on that afternoon, the next day, and he goes, hey, remember that thing we saw, that girl? I'm like, yes, isn't that crazy? He was like, yeah, that just boggles my mind how she just disappeared like that. Yeah, she was barefooted and, blonde hair, yeah. And I told him, yeah, she was wearing a red dress, and he was like, huh? Wait, no, she was wearing a black dress. I go, no, you were driving. I was on the passenger. I was the one closer. She was wearing a red dress, holding herself like something bad happened to her. He was like, I saw the same thing, but she was wearing a black dress. And we were almost fighting at that time.
Thanks, John. A ghostly woman on the road. That old chestnut. And it makes sense, because as of 2018, there were a total of 39.9 million miles of any kind of road in the world. These were shared between 256,000 miles of expressways and 39.6 million miles of normal roads. And with that many miles to speak of, there's bound to be something supernatural along the way. So thank you again, John, for sharing your strange experience on the road. Now, this next one isn't necessarily an entity in the road ahead of you, but its presence is certainly felt. Ron from Arizona, welcome to the show.
Good evening, Derek. This is Ron from Arizona. A couple years back, I'd gone to a palm reader with several of my friends. I was the third one in the group to go. And as soon as you sit down at the table across from the palm reader, she'll have you put your palms down on the table and lay them flat and then turn them over so that she can read them. And as soon as I turned them over, she said, "Oh, yes, it's you. You have several spirits around you." But she told me right away not to be alarmed about them because they're protectors or guardians, or she might have used the term angels, but not necessarily. She characterized them more as just guardian spirits. So they could be ancestors who watch out for you. And then went on to do the rest of the reading. But I always took that. It was just kind of nice to hear, If anything were to happen, knock on wood, you have your guardian. Well, I had just watched the national championship game here tonight with Kansas, my alma mater, overcoming North Carolina. And so I was excited. I wasn't drinking or anything, but I was driving home afterward, and I wasn't paying as much attention to the road as I should have been, and was on the highway to get to my house. Still had a little ways to go. I was kind of leaning in, looking at my phone and at the dash screen. I probably have a 8x5-inch screen on the dash of my truck connected to the phone. And that, all of a sudden, just went dark as I was looking at it, and just stayed dark for several seconds, completely dark. And that had never happened before. It's a new truck. I've had it for almost a year and never had anything like that happen with it before. The rest of the truck was working perfectly fine. I'm still driving down the highway just fine. But in that time, I just got an overwhelming feeling of just like, hey, pay attention to what you're doing. Just something in my head was like, focus on what you got to do. And so my mom had always said that your grandma was watching out for you. So that's kind of what I took it as, is I had my guardians looking out for me to snap me back to attention. And I did. I just kind of said out loud, "Hey, you're right," and paid more attention to what I was doing. And after several seconds, the screen turned back on and was working normally. Very strange. Thank you for the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ron. I'm glad to hear that someone is looking out for you. And be careful out there, because we all know the roads can be treacherous.
With zero sugar and zero crash.
The same goes for business.
Now picture yourself on a long and lonesome Nevada highway. You're cruising down the road when you see something ahead. Something unusual. Please welcome Anonymous out of the Silver State.
Hey, Derek. I'm in northwest Nevada, a very, 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 very remote area. There's nobody that lives out here. There's no civilization, really. It has a gas station with 2 pumps and a bar and a motel. That's it. And I think the year-round residents there are like 150. Anyway, I was walking in at dawn yesterday morning, so around 5:30, 5:40 maybe, and I saw an amber light above the ridge that was paralleling me. And I thought, is that a road? Has there been a road back there the entire time? I never realized there was a road back there. I figured maybe somebody was either coming down that road or they had parked on that road and they had just turned on their car for the morning or something. And so I took my 10 by 42 binoculars out and looked. There was a street light on top of this ridge. And I don't mean like a street light, like the new fancy, LED one. It had like, that yellowish, amber, orange kind of color bulb to it. But out in the middle, literal nowhere, like how would you run underground power out here? And two, why? It's on BLM land. There's literally nothing out here. And I've walked in the dark a million times and I've never noticed this street lamp before. Well, I took down my binoculars and I looked at it for a while and I'm thinking there's got to be something I'm missing. There's got to be a house up there or something. So I bring up my Spartan Ford, which is like a GPS map that has like topography and LiDAR and a bunch of other little features, but one of it is it shows where private and public land is. I would have thought maybe there's a little cabin up there that I missed. There's no private land up there. There's no reason to have a street lamp. And then I look up and the street lamp's light is like flickering. And right as I get to pull up the binoculars, it goes out. And then I can't find it anymore. It's gone. Like this thing that looked, I don't know, it looked like a pole went into the ground and then like an old school, like orangish yellow, amber light on the top of it. It's gone. And then in the daytime, I was looking and I was trying to find an unilluminated street lamp, I guess. It's not up there. But I saw it as clear as day as I've seen, anyone else. The only other odd thing that may tie in, maybe not, is on my way driving in. It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I saw the fastest shooting star I've ever seen in my life. It was blue. It had no tail. And it just covered the entire sky that I could see it in, probably less than a second. But I have no idea what I saw. And it's been driving me crazy ever since. So this would have happened, August 6th at about, 5:30 in the morning, 5:40 in the morning, something like that. Anyway, thanks for your time, Derek.
Thanks, caller. This sort of reminds me of the staircase in the middle of the woods phenomenon that was very popular a few years back. Essentially, people would find random sets of stairs in the middle of the forest. No explanation as to how they got there. Now, so often we wish that our callers would investigate further and report back. And luckily this time, that's exactly what our caller did. And he did so from the top of the ridge.
Hey, Derek. Following up on my story from the other day about my disappearing streetlight on the top of a ridge in the middle of nowhere in the high desert. Again, I was chasing speed goats out here, and as much as my mind's been on that, it just started bothering me. I had to know if there was something up here or not. And so I don't know if you can hear the wind noise, and I apologize if you can, but I'm on top of the ridge. I went and hiked it, and I'm walking around up here, and there's nothing. There's not a street lamp. There's not some sort of pole that illuminates light. There's literally nothing on top of this ridge out of the ordinary. So I have no idea what I saw. I'm like 65 all-purpose miles, highway, dirt road, and walking from like Gerlach, Nevada. And I know that they're getting ready to do Burning Man. And maybe somebody got real lost in the sauce of one of those displays and found their way up here. I doubt it. Like I said, there's just no roads up here to bring something like that. But I'm telling you, plain as day, I saw what looked to be a street lamp. It almost looked kind of wooden, maybe. And it was in the ground as far as I could tell, and it had one of those old school yellowish, orangish amber lights coming off of it. And that's what got my attention. And I saw it, like as clearly as I'm looking at my boots right now on the ground. I don't know, man. I've never seen anything like this and never had something that I couldn't at least sort of explain. So there's my call. Thanks, man. Have a good day. Bye.
Now, who remembers that obelisk that was found in far remote Utah 7 or 8 years ago? I'm getting the same vibes here. It's unusual, to say the least. Now, you shared it with the right folks, caller. We thank you again for doing so. Now, it just so happens we have a third anonymous caller featured here tonight. And it also just so happens that they're up next. Please welcome them from Parts Unknown.
A real quick story. I was driving with my mom. I was younger, and we were coming back from my grandparents' house. It was usually about an hour and a half ride, as we lived in Erie, and they lived down in Butler in Pennsylvania. And the sun was going down, but I was reading a book as my mom was driving, and I remember kind of being irritated that I had to stop reading because the light was going away. And as I looked up from my book, there was a face in the windshield. Now, we're going about 70 miles an hour, so I screamed. My mom asked me, what the hell? And I said, there was a face in the windshield, and I turned around and looked, and this was on a major highway, I-79, and there was a man standing alongside the road. Whether he was physically there or not, or astrally there or not, I don't know, but he had this ghoulish grin on his face. I don't even know how I saw this because we were going 70. But yeah, so it's one of those weird highway stories. I've got a lot, so you'll be hearing from me again.
Thanks, caller. Well, that's something you don't hear every day. Perhaps the highway our caller was traveling on was one of America's haunted roadways. And as it just so happens, I have a list of the top 20 most haunted roads in America, courtesy of the rental car company, Sixt. Maybe it's 60. Anyway, here's the list. Number 20 is Dudley Road, Massachusetts. Number 19 is Elbow Road, Virginia. Number 18 is Crawford Road, Virginia. Number 17 is Gold Camp Road, Colorado. Coming in at 16 is Roaring Fork Motor Trail out of Tennessee. Arizona's Apache Trail comes in at 15. The Devil's Backbone in Texas is 14. And number 13 is Sweet Hollow Road in New York. Number 12 is one you should recognize, Bray Road in Wisconsin. Number 11 is Birch Lane, Pennsylvania. Number 10 is the Proctor Valley Road. Number 9 is Cancamungus Highway in New Hampshire. Number 8 is the infamous Cuba Road in Illinois. Number 7 is Riverdale Road in Colorado. Number 6 is Highway 5 in Alabama. Florida's Interstate 4 comes in at 5th. Goatman's Bridge in Texas is 4th. Number 3 is Highway 20 in Oregon. Number 2 is Route 66 in California, a road not too far from where I sit today. And finally, number 1 is Clinton Road, over in New Jersey. Now, how many of these spooky streets have you been on? It looks like I have some traveling to do. Thank you again, caller, for sharing the spooky story. All right, folks, we're halfway through the program, which means it's time for a pit stop. We can fuel up and grab a few snacks at that gas station. Christy from Virginia, tell us why this stop might be a bad idea.
Hi, Derek. This is Christy. I live in Chesapeake, Virginia, the southeastern part of Virginia, which many people say is a very haunted area. Many people have labeled me as a seer, a psychic, or a sensitive. Choose whichever one you want, but I can see things that's living and dead. I can hear things. I feel things that a lot of people don't. So I have 2 back-to-back stories, and they're both from the same place, from the workplace that I used to work about 17 years ago. It's in an area called the Stumpy Lake section of Virginia, and you can look that term up, and you'll find haunted information about that. But anyway, I worked at a gas station, and I would have the weirdest feelings. Every time I walked in there, I would feel like somebody was there. Somebody was playing around with us or playing games with us or things like that. And other workers also felt that. My boss would tell us things like she could see the video and she could hear me talking to somebody, but on the video, nobody's there. She recorded a couple times where the bathroom doors are big steel, heavy doors. They would open and shut just randomly. There were cameras in the freezer, and she would see where I would put a box down, and then I'd turn around and the box was gone, and we couldn't figure out where the box went, and I would just sit there and start talking to whoever wasn't there. So these things kept happening. I would feel things. I would see hands just kind of pushing my coworkers, or I would hear laughter or little things and just weird, funny things around the building. And out at the gas pumps, I could also hear random things. People came in and told us that they felt like somebody was pushing them, or that they were being pulled in one direction or the other. And this went on for a little while, and my boss and I were talking one day, and she was telling me that, you know, if it wasn't for the videos and seeing the doors open and shut, she would think I was crazy, because I would just randomly in the video be talking to somebody and she could figure out who. Well, while we were discussing this, a man came in and he was like, "So you have strange feelings?" And we said, "Yeah, a lot of the coworkers do." He said, "Well, let me tell you a story. When I was young, back in the 90s, there was an old rundown 2-story house that used to stand here. And my little sister, my little brother were teenagers at the time, and they decided to go hang out in the house and go drinking. And so they had a party. They had about 5 or 6 other people with them, and the house caught on fire. Everybody in the house ended up dying. He said that his brother went in to grab his sister, and when they found his body, he had his sister in his arms laying at the front of the house. Many of the family members still believe that their spirits still exist where the gas station has gone up. So that was the first story. And then the second story, it was probably about 2 years later. I was walking outside and I was dumping the trash, and I often felt like people were touching me or playing around with things or moving things around and stuff like that. But this particular day felt very serene. The sun was going down, and there was a woman, and she was dancing in a white nightgown and white dress out in the parking lot. And I was like, "Hey." She didn't respond to me. It didn't seem like anybody else saw her except for me. She didn't say anything to me or didn't even look at me. She just was dancing. It was a calming spirit, but she didn't seem to be interrupted by anything. She's just dancing around. And I went inside and I was talking to my coworker, and he said, "Oh, well, you should feel privileged." And I thought, "Well, why?" And he said, "Because the lady you saw is called Lady in White." And so he told me this story that before the house was burned down by the teenagers, a couple lived there, and the old woman would constantly tell the police that her husband was abusing her. Well, one night, the lady was laying dead at the bottom of the stairs. And then to this day, they still are unsure whether the husband pushed her, she killed herself, or whatever. But what they do know is that all the pictures in the newspapers showed her in a white dress. When the workers were fixing the land after it got sold, a few of the workers noticed a woman dancing around in either a white nightgown or a dress, dancing around the area that the house once stood. I always thought that was pretty cool, that I actually got to see it. They say that if you see the woman in white, she brings good luck, but I haven't quite seen it yet, so I don't know that I believe in that. But anyway, I think it's pretty cool that I got to see it back then.
Thanks, Christy. Haunted gas stations. You'd think that would be something we would hear about more often, given the number of people that pass through them daily. But those reports are pretty rare, apparently, even on this program. But Christy is here to make up for it. She has not one but 2 haunted gas station stories to offer up, and an origin story to boot. Equal parts spooky and awesome, Christy. And we thank you again for giving us a fright.
They did an incredible
Ball to the left side.
Now, one of the benefits of being behind the wheel is the opportunity to watch the sky. And when you do, you're sometimes rewarded with some of the strangest sights imaginable. Now, April is one of those lucky people that saw something she couldn't explain. Here is her story.
Hi, my name is April. I'm from Michigan. This story that I'm about to tell you happened anywhere from 15 to 20 years ago. This happened in Grand Junction, Michigan. This was in the summertime, and at the time I was living with my grandparents, and some of my cousins came out of state to visit. And I remember this night specifically, we were bored and we wanted to go to Walmart just to buy some snacks and hang out. It was around 10 p.m. or later. I was the one driving, so when we got in the car, we didn't notice anything, but when I pulled out of the driveway, we were turning right. On the left side, I noticed something like huge, but with like lights around it. And I looked up and I was like, what is that? And I just seen like a perfect circular, I don't even know exactly what it was, but it had a ring of lights perfectly around it. And I was just so confused because I have never believed in UFOs. So it just threw me off. And then all my cousins, we all looked at it, but then I was so scared and I was the one driving and I was panicked. So I just went ahead and turned right because I don't know, I guess I was scared to turn to reverse and go back home. I don't know. I just proceeded to drive. I kept looking back because I was the one driving, so I couldn't really look back. I really didn't want to look back again because I was scared. And my cousins kept looking, and I was like shouting and yelling at them like not to look anymore because they probably can tell that we're looking at them. It's weird to say because if I didn't believe in UFOs, then how did I assume or think any of that, Anyways, I told them stop looking. But one of my cousins specifically did not stop. She just kept looking until she couldn't see it anymore. So she probably has a better story than I do. What's crazy is that we all had our phones and nobody even cared to grab the phone and record it. We were just all in shock. And we just kept driving until obviously we didn't see it anymore because of the trees and everything. Or I don't know if it just kind of disappeared. It was like a 15, 20-minute drive to Walmart. It was just quiet. And then out of nowhere, we came up to a farm. And there was cows in the middle of the road, which was super random. And I don't know why that's important to the story, but I feel like it had something to do with it. Anyways, we still proceeded to go to Walmart. We got what we needed, but the whole time it was like a quiet drive. And on our way back, we were all just so terrified because we didn't know if we were going to see it again. But as we were pulling up and getting closer to the house, like nothing was there. So we ended up just going inside, letting my grandparents know and telling my aunt and uncle, but they just laughed at us and didn't believe anything we said. And till this day, it's been the joke of the year. So yeah, we're a joke, I guess. But anyways, thank you to my cousin Martina Burco for pushing me to finally tell this story and submit it here. Thanks. Bye.
Freaky stuff, April. Thank you for calling in. And if I'm honest, it sounds like an amazing experience, especially knowing that no harm befell the group. Unless the abductions were completely wiped from your minds, of course. And this also sounds like something straight out of a movie, as does this next entry from Tanya in Minnesota, who describes something eerily similar.
Hi, this is Tanya from north central Minnesota in the Brainerd Lakes area. Regularly, and I mean regularly, when I go out and have always gone out and looked at the sky, I would see abnormal things. And I've actually heard a lot of callers call in with similar stories to my experiences. It got to a point where I actually for years stopped looking in the sky because it made me so uneasy. But this experience took place on a summer night, I would say probably mid to late July, when I was around 19 years old. I was driving home with a friend of mine, And on the county road we were on, it was actually between two large lakes. And that may or may not make a difference, but I've heard about UFOs and the connection with water, and there are lakes everywhere where I live. So I, driving home, had a little Honda Accord. We're listening to music, windows down. I had a sunroof, and the sunroof was open. It's dark, it's late. We're having a good time, talking, laughing. And up ahead, we saw, at first, it was like unusual lights, but it was still at a distance, but it was low. And when I say low, I mean maybe 200 to 500 feet above the highway. This thing, as we approached, I realized how giant it was. It was a perfectly triangular shaped, pitch black, massive craft. It was distinctly triangular. There were no flashing lights, but there were lights, large white lights. I remember being absolutely mortified because this craft was literally hovering above the desolate rural county road that we were driving on, and there was no option but to literally go directly under it. So I remember at this point, I started to floor it. And this craft is maybe 1,000 feet on each end. It was huge. I pushed the pedal down to the metal and started speeding up the vehicle, knowing that I had to go directly under it. All I thought in my head, I began to pray in my head. I just prayed that nothing was going to happen to us and that we could just clear and get under this thing and past this thing. Meanwhile, my friend at the same time is saying horrible things, like hoping the opposite, basically. Once I got directly under the craft, I remember momentarily peeking up, looking through the sunroof, and then looking right back on the road and having absolutely no interest, white-knuckling the steering wheel. Anyways, I just had to tell that story because nobody believes it except my friend, of course, and it is a life-changing experience, and this seems to be the perfect place to be able to share it. But thank you so much. Bye now.
Thanks, Tanya. It seems that this sort of experience happens a lot. Those two entries were very similar. And it's also similar to a plethora of other experiences with these strange, clandestine triangles. We hear plenty of them here on this program. But luckily for Tanya, and sadly for us, there didn't seem to be an abduction experience here either. So at least you have that. Now, another big thanks to Tanya for taking the time to share this unbelievable entry. Now, folks, don't forget about our merchandise shop. Just visit monstersamonguspodcast.com and click the shop tab to get your hands on the latest and greatest officially licensed Monsters Among Us gear today. monstersamonguspodcast.com and hit that shop tab. Now, strange things aren't only seen in the sky. They're seen on the road as well. Here's Chris from California to better explain.
Hello, Derek. This is Chris Odin of California. I am a DoorDasher, so I do a lot of driving, and typically my time frame of work is between like 11 a.m. to like 10 p.m. if I decide to work that entire period of time. So I have experienced an interesting phenomenon tonight, and I am a little bit spooked. It is currently Easter Sunday of 2022, 10:30 p.m. I am working the dashing area, the range as they call it, of Thousand Oaks / Agora Hills, and I have received a bunch of orders tonight that we're going to Malibu, which is about a 20-minute drive through a twisty mountainous road. But at least 3 times tonight, I have seen people wearing like outfits that were out of place, just kind of on the side of the road standing, or like in the opposing lane, just kind of standing there. Now, this is California, and it is springtime, so the temperature can vary wildly, as I'm sure you know. But these people, like, it could just be that I drove past them very quickly. I acknowledge that might be part of it. They are just very, very still, like unnervingly still. Like, I've seen some people in my time driving where they will, like, back off, or they'll continue walking where they were going. But these three individuals that I've seen on three different instances tonight alone were, like, very static, very still, and I could not get a good look at their faces no matter how hard I looked. Given the fact that I was moving, that may just be a trick of my eyes. But these people are not on roads that would be traversed on foot, is the thing. Like, these are roads where, like, they lead to neighborhoods nestled in the canyons and arroyos. You would not walk on these roads. Like, to get to a house from there, it's like a mile or more. And none of these individuals were wearing the same colors. They were not wearing the same style of clothing. They were not wearing outfits meant for the same temperatures. But they were all just on different roads that are non-residential, you know, far enough away from anywhere that them being there feels wrong or unusual. That's my experience tonight. Hope maybe this is useful. Yeah, talk to you later. Bye.
Thanks, Chris. Well, gang, what do you make of this one? A cult, perhaps, doing some sort of nighttime ritual. Some new internet fad. Bunch of goobers in the road, making videos. Or could these have been performance artists? This is Southern California, after all. Or perhaps it was ghosts. Or maybe the occupants of those aforementioned UFOs. Whatever it was, sharing it here with us was the right choice, Chris. Tip of the hat, sir. Thanks again for ringing in. Alright, gang, it's time for one last break. So get out, stretch your legs, take a leak. We're about to hit the home stretch.
But again, it goes back to the fact that it's hard to have confidence in a team.
Oh, safety over. Ski pants, ski top, gloves, speed.
Have you ever been driving and suddenly realized you've zoned out for the last dozen or so miles? Absolutely no recollection of how you traveled that far. Yeah, me neither. But apparently that happens to other people. And apparently it happened to Jay. Or some version of it, at least. He's calling in from parts unknown.
Hey Derek, this is Jay in the Ozarks. I called before about an out-of-body experience I had while I was driving down an old dirt road. Well, I just had another one. I was driving down a highway in Oklahoma, a 2-lane highway through a reservation in central Oklahoma, very far inside, pretty rural. And I saw a lady walking down the road coming towards me, and as soon as I saw her, I had the impression that she was going to raise her hand and smile at me and sort of wave. And as soon as I had that impression, I seemed to rush right out of the car, swirl around her head one time, and then dart back down the road the way I had come, about a mile. And I came to a trailer house, into the trailer house, down the hallway, into a little room, and around the little room, and that was it. By the time I realized what was going on, I was back in my car, cruising at 60 miles an hour down the road. And she had never raised her hand. You know, it all happened in like the flash of me thinking she was going to raise her hand. She never did raise her hand. She just looked right at me and smiled. But that's probably because I had a really cute dog hanging out the window. So that was really strange. I don't really know what to make of it. It wasn't a sensory experience other than visual. There was no sound or psychic impression or anything. And as for the girl, I couldn't pick her out of a police lineup. I didn't get a really good look at her face other than to say she was probably 20 to 30s, medium build. And the details of her house and stuff are really vivid. I mean, I feel like I would bet my life on exactly where that place is and the details that I saw, the paneling, the pictures, various things in the closet. It was really bizarre. And I tried to decide if there was a meaning behind it. And I took away from it that she was very happy, that she just had a very happy presence about her. And, you know, she obviously had really humble life, but a very happy spirit. And I was left, you know, kind of examining my own spirit, which was definitely not happy, even with quite a bit more material success. So I kind of found it to be a profound experience. You know, it really did make me turn off the radio and kind of think about it in terms of not only was it incredible to have this kind of flash out-of-body experience, but it was also, you know, pretty incredible for it to mean something. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know, love the show, keep up the good work.
We appreciate the call, Jay. No, I've definitely been on some drives where I wished my soul would have left my body. But after hearing Jay's call, I'm not so sure that that would have worked out in my favor. Super weird stuff. And I imagine it drives Jay a little batty, not knowing exactly what happened that day. He knows something unusual took place, but the exact ins and outs of it seem to remain a mystery. Now maybe a listener can help solve this riddle, Jay. But until they call in, we thank you for making the call. Now gang, it wouldn't be an episode from the road without a monster story. Please welcome Gabby. She's calling in from Arizona.
Hi, Derek. My name is Gabby, and I'm calling from Santan Valley, Arizona. We've lived out here for the last 15 years or so, and we are right on the border with Queen Creek, Arizona. So in October of 2024, we were driving home at approximately 9:30 p.m. My husband and I were both driving in separate cars, and we were headed southbound, headed towards our home. And we were driving on a 2-lane street, and on the opposite side of the road, there was like 2 or 3 cars that were also like oncoming traffic. And from the east side of the street, it's like farmland. We noticed that there was like a pack of 3 large dogs that looked like Great Danes that were running like towards the street. So all the cars like from my side of the street, which there was like 2 cars behind me. It was my car, my husband's car, and then another person's car. And then the 3 cars on the opposite side of the street, we all stopped because we all saw the dogs running towards the street. So this night was not windy and it was not rainy. No breeze, nothing. It was just a still night, clear night. And all of a sudden, once the dogs started running like in the middle of the street, like a sand tunnel formed around them. It was kind of like that old movie, The 10 Commandments, the way Moses split the sea, like a water tunnel. Well, it looked like this around the dogs. So we couldn't see them with the headlights. And then the sandstorm that happened just around the dogs, like the tunnel, we were just only able to see like shadows of these dogs. But it was really weird because once they were in front of our cars, like the shadows, they looked like if they were like bald, like if they didn't have any hair or fur. Their bodies looked wide like a lion. And then their legs were really long and skinny. And then their heads looked like greyhounds. So it didn't match like what they were supposed to look like. It was just weird. And then also like the way that they would move, like the way that I was seeing them, it was like that choppy, like black and white cartoon style, like Steamboat Willie. So this happened on a Thursday night. I work really long hours. So by the time Thursday comes around, like I'm exhausted. And like it was just like I couldn't make out what I was seeing. My eyes were not understanding. My brain wasn't understanding what I was looking at. So I kept blinking because like it just looked blurry and weird. And then all of a sudden, the last dog, as it was crossing over in front of my car, it just started crawling really weird. Kind of like in the movie Frozen, the way the moose walks on the ice, like all slippery, kind of like spiderish looking, kind of strange. And it looked like if it was trying to go on its two hind legs. And I kept blinking. I wear glasses and I was like, what the heck? Like, what am I seeing? Like, why can't I focus on this? And then all of a sudden it just crossed over and I just like sat there for a bit and I was just like, what the heck did I just see? So at that point, my husband is in the car behind me and he calls my cell phone. I answer the call and my husband says, okay, what the F was that? So he saw the same thing that I saw. And then all of a sudden, like once they stopped crossing in front of our cars, the sand tunnel it stopped. And it was clear again. So we started moving again. All like our cars on our side of the street and the cars on the opposite side of the street. So then we just drove home and it was just weird. We've never seen anything like that out here in all the years we've lived here. And we just couldn't make out like what it was we saw that day. So then fast forward a few months, like in April of 2025, I was scrolling down Instagram and I ran across a video that said that somebody had spotted skinwalkers out in Mesa, Arizona. Mesa is like maybe 45 minutes away from where we live. We've never heard of skinwalkers out here, like maybe towards like the Utah border. We've heard of that, but never out here in the area where we live in. So I started showing the video to my husband, like, oh my God, there's skinwalkers that have been reported in Mesa. We started watching the video of what the guy was talking about. And my husband says, oh my God, that's what we saw last October on the road here by our house. So I started going down the internet rabbit hole and just doing a lot of research. And I actually found some videos that I'll send to you so you could attach them to the show notes if you like. There's like a recording that some lady captured on her Ring camera. It isn't like a video, but it's like sounds that she recorded like at 3:00 in the morning. But what's really strange, the neighborhood that she lives in is actually on the road that we saw those strange looking dogs on. And then also I found a story for the mountains that are close here to my house, which is maybe like a 10-minute drive from my house. There's these mountains out here, Santan Regional Park. There was some campers that reported a really scary story and they actually saw them and claimed that they were attacked by these creatures. So anywho, that's my story. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Gabby, for the call. Now, I usually shy away from the suggestion of a skinwalker for a number of reasons, but the biggest being geographical. From what I understand, this is a creature or entity that is somewhat confined to the Four Corners area. But I, too, had the same thought that Gabby did as she was telling her tale. Skinwalker. They say it's bad to even utter its name, so maybe I should stop. But Gabby did send in those clips, and you can find them in tonight's show notes at monstersamonguspodcast.com and by clicking on the show notes tab. They certainly help set the scene. So wild dogs, mangy coyotes, or the dreaded skinwalker, whatever these creatures were, they sure made an impression on us. I love a good monster story, and I love a good Tales from the Road episode. So thank you for being a part of this one. And a big thanks to you, listener, for tuning in here this evening. It was a pleasure riding along with you. The Monsters Among Us podcast is written and produced by me, Derek Hayes. Copyright Red Crow Media. Additional support is provided by Sarah Carter Hayes, Delaney Bowers, and Connor Ryan. All media used in this production is done so under the protection of fair use. Be sure to give us a like and follow on our social media pages. Join our Discord server. Give us a like and follow on YouTube. And leave us a rate and review wherever that sort of thing is possible. Now don't forget, you can catch the show every Saturday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern on the UNX Digital Network. Just visit unxnetwork.com to tune in. And finally, tonight's score was provided by Iron Cthulhu Apocalypse, Co.ag Music, and Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Now watch our movie Shadows in the Desert. Go to BorregoTriangle.com to tune in. Join us in the beyond. Visit the website and click the Patreon tab to get more info. And don't forget to check out Monsters Among Us Jr., our sister show. You can follow it wherever you get your podcasts. Alright, gang. I'll be back here on Thursday with a brand new installment. Be sure to meet me here. Until then, keep your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road. And don't stop unless you have to. Keep it spooky and have yourselves a great night.